In a breaking story yesterday, there was a report indicating that Brett Kavanaugh had specifically reached out to former Yale students in an effort to debunk Deborah Ramirez's allegations prior to the New Yorker story being published. Now, keep in mind that he reached out to them, and we know this through text messages prior to the New Yorker story being published. That's a relevant fact, okay? Now, with that being said, I just wanna quickly give you the details of those text messages, what those messages contained, and then talk about how there is evidence of perjury. That's a serious problem, and the utter hypocrisy coming from Republicans on this very issue. Now, in the days leading up to a public allegation that Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh exposed himself to a college classmate, Deborah Ramirez, the judge and his team were communicating behind the scenes with friends to refute the claim. Text between a woman by the name of Kerry Berchem and Karen Yarasavage, both friends of Kavanaugh, suggest that the nominee was personally talking with former classmates about Ramirez's story in advance of the New Yorker article that made her allegation public. So Berchem did speak to the press about this, and the main reason why she spoke to the press about it was because she was trying to get these text messages to the FBI as part of their investigation, but she was having trouble getting to them. She was having trouble submitting this evidence to them or getting a response back. So Berchem says in her memo to the FBI that Kavanaugh and or his friends may have initiated an anticipatory narrative as early as July to conceal or discredit Ramirez.
So I want to be clear about something here. His testimony was on September 25th. The New Yorker article was on September 23rd. The text messages, at least some of them, are very clearly from September 22nd. Before the New Yorker article comes out, Kavanaugh is reaching out to classmates at Yale, trying to get them to side with him instead of Ramirez. So that is going to be enormously relevant to the perjury. Now, but as Anna just told you, they actually apparently knew this for months on end. Some of this trying to discredit his accusers goes back to July, which goes to a question we've been asking that I really haven't seen almost anywhere else. Okay, so this is what Kavanaugh knew, and that's devastating, and I was led to believe by Republicans perjury is monumentally important and in our impeachment grounds. But who else knew? Did the Republican senators know? And that's a very good question. There's references to Brett's team. Who was on Brett's team? Did it include people talking to the Republican senators who might have known about these allegations for months? Well, and to be fair, it's not that they didn't do anything about them. Apparently they were busy behind the scenes, so at least some people were trying to discredit the women who they knew would be coming forward.
I would like to know why Mitch McConnell wanted to dissuade Donald Trump from choosing Brett Kavanaugh as the Supreme Court nominee. Now, the media reports at the time argued that McConnell wanted to dissuade Trump because he was very concerned that Kavanaugh had an extensive record and there were too many documents to go through and that it would just take too long, and he was concerned. No, documents? Really? That's what Mitch McConnell was concerned about? And we know what were in his previous decisions as an appellate judge. We know all of that. And none of it was out of the ordinary in regard to what a conservative judge would decide or do. So why did Mitch McConnell want to dissuade Trump? I thought that that was strange. And given what we know now, I would suspect that McConnell knew that there were other issues involving Kavanaugh. Now, with that said, though, we now have evidence indicating that Kavanaugh knew about Deborah Ramirez's allegations prior to the publication of that New Yorker piece. Now, when Senator Orrin Hatch asked Kavanaugh about Deborah Ramirez's allegations, it appears that Kavanaugh lied under oath, and we have evidence of that. So let's take a look at the first video. Again, this is Senator Orrin Hatch speaking to Kavanaugh during the hearing.
When did you first hear of Ms. Ramirez's allegations against you?
In the period since then, in the New Yorker story.
Did the ranking member or any of her colleagues or any of their staffs ask you about Ms. Ramirez's allegations before they were leaked to the press?
No.
Oh, it's fascinating. It appears that he lied there.
Yeah, that's a clear lie. So, look, I think it's a super clear lie that Devil's Triangle is a drinking game and all the other things that he clearly, to any rational human being, is not telling the truth about when it came to all of his descriptions of what he did in high school and college. But you can make an argument. You can say, well, maybe in some really rare places, Devil's Triangle might not mean what it means everywhere else in the country, but in that little cave or village, it means a drinking game, okay? But I never heard about it until the New Yorker article, and I have texts. Now the FBI is in possession of text messages from before the New Yorker article where he's talking about the Ramirez allegations. That is a stone cold lie. Perjury, indisputable.
And I also want to be clear about something else. The former classmates who are now coming forward are doing so reluctantly. In fact, they did not want to get involved in any of this until after they saw the hearing and they saw the way Brett Kavanaugh presented himself and argued that this is nothing more than a witch hunt. He argued that this is a smear campaign and that he was a great choir boy when he was younger, that he didn't do anything out of the ordinary. It appears that he did, and that's the reason why these individuals are coming out and they're providing this evidence for the FBI investigation. And they're being clear in that they don't know whether or not he actually committed the sexual assaults that he's been accused of. But they do feel that it's their duty to give the FBI whatever information they have so the right conclusion can be drawn from that.
And Kavanaugh is a serial liar, and it definitely makes me question whether he lied about the underlying allegations, because he doesn't have to lie about any of this. So a man in his position could easily say, yeah, I had heard rumors that the New Yorker was looking into a piece about Ramirez, and I know I didn't do anything with Ramirez, so I went to all my friends and said, do you guys remember anything like this? And I tried to get witnesses. Now, some people are saying, witness tampering. This is not a trial, so I'm not sure that I agree with that charge. Besides which, you can say your team did it. Maybe you should have had your team do it, but that you didn't personally do it. That part to me is not important. What's important is the gratuitous lies. The lies that don't need to happen. I like beer, but I never drank too much. Every person who knows you thought you drank too much. And there's nothing ostensibly terribly wrong about somebody drinking too much in college or high school, as long as you didn't do anything terrible when you were that drunk. But when you try to cover everything up, it leads me to believe that you're trying to cover something bigger up. Otherwise, there's no reason to lie about things that are relatively innocuous, like drinking too much beer. Who cares?
So look, aside from disagreements about politics, my number one issue with Kavanaugh was the fact that it appeared that he and Republicans were trying to avoid the investigation. But once the agreement happened and the investigation was going to take place, I don't know if he's guilty or not, and I feel extremely uncomfortable, making a firm judgment on that until we have all the facts in front of us. But now, even if the FBI doesn't find anything in regard to those allegations, either proving or disproving it, the bigger issue would be the fact that he consistently lied throughout that hearing. And that is serious because he is under oath. And remember, if he gets confirmed, he is going to be at the highest level of our justice system. He will be a Supreme Court judge, Supreme Court justice. And so are we comfortable with someone who just flat out lies like that, making decisions defending our Constitution? I don't know, I personally wouldn't be. And you know who else wouldn't be? Lindsey Graham. So let's take a look at what Lindsey Graham had to say about lying under oath back in 1999.
I have argued to you that when you found that a judge was a perjurer, you couldn't in good conscience send him back in a courtroom, because everybody that came in that courtroom thereafter would have a real serious doubt. I will argue to you that when you find this president guilty of perjury, if you do, that he has violated his oath, and that by a consequence of that, some public trust has been lost.
I totally agree with him on that. I just wish that he would apply that same standard to Supreme Court nominees on the Republican side.
If a federal judge is found to be lying, you've lost trust in him. He's got to go. Lindsey Graham there was arguing for the impeachment of President Bill Clinton because he told a lie. Now, we clearly have Kavanaugh lying about the text here. No question about it. So, Lindsey Graham, are you a man of your word? I know that you like to get all worked up about principles. Well, here's a principle you said. I didn't say it, you said it, right? So are you gonna take action on it? By the way, Kavanaugh is a weird liar. And so if Graham was worried about lies that Clinton told about a consensual affair that Bill Clinton had, wait till you get a load of Kavanaugh. So why do I say he's a weird liar? So in the case of Ramirez, they were at a wedding together and his team worked hard to get a picture of them together at the wedding, presumably to use as evidence of, well, here she is standing next to him and they're all fine, right? And so, and they got that picture. So now it doesn't show any real thing. We can show it to you here. They're very distant. And the woman who
we actually have that photo, so I want to just quickly show it to you. It's graphic 7.
Right, and the woman who's telling us about this is standing next to Ramirez, who's circled there on the left, and she's saying that she basically clung on to her the whole night and didn't want to go near Kavanaugh or his friends. But that's not the relevant part to me, at least in this context. The relevant part is that when Kavanaugh was asked if he had been at a wedding with her, he said, probably. No, but wait a minute, why do you say that? You know you were at the wedding with her. You tried to get the picture of you and her at the wedding together. You're perfectly aware of that. Why would you say probably? He then went on to say, I'm sure I saw her because it wasn't a huge wedding, but that he doesn't have any specific recollection. That is a weird lie, man. You have the picture of you and her at the wedding. I would say, yeah, I was at the wedding with her. Yeah, I remember being at the wedding, but I don't remember much beyond that. But no, even that he's got to lie about. Now, there's something wrong with this guy. And so we came in with an open mind. Every day, evidence mounts that he has been lying all throughout. So far, there's been no evidence that Dr. Blasey Ford has lied. So this is, if it was a mystery, that mystery is becoming less and less interesting every day. One side has been shown to lie over and over and over again, and the other has had their story corroborated not only by other people who talk about the other details, not about the assault, because that was in a room with just Kavanaugh, Judge, and Ford at the time, but every other detail she's given, even corroborated by Brett Kavanaugh's own calendar. So it's becoming a no contest as to who's lying and who's telling the truth. And again, on the issue of the text, there can be no reasonable argument otherwise. And Lindsey Graham, I'm sure, is not only saying pull the nomination, but impeach Kavanaugh, right? Right, Lindsey? Because I know you claim you're a man of your word.
Well, Lindsey Graham maintains that these accusations against Brett Kavanaugh are nothing more than politics, the left trying to smear him. In fact, I want to just quickly remind you of the meltdown that Senator Graham had during the hearing involving Brett Kavanaugh and Dr. Blasey Ford. Let's take a quick look at that.
What you want to do is destroy this guy's life, hold this seat open, and hope you win in 2020. You've said that, not me. I would never do to them what you've done to this guy. This is the most unethical sham since I've been in politics. Boy, y'all want power. God, I hope you never get it. I hope the American people can see through this sham. You're looking for a fair process? You came to the wrong town at the wrong time, my friend.
Now remember, he's accusing Democrats of playing politics, and I think to some extent there are politics involved, which is why I want to make sure that we stick to the facts and not allow any narrative to take control or take hold of what we think, right? Let's stick to the evidence that we have in front of us. But Lindsey Graham, it's rich to hear him talk about politics and how Democrats are trying to block Kavanaugh because of politics. Remember Merrick Garland? Remember the fact that Obama nominates a Supreme Court justice and Republicans blocked him due to politics. And we have evidence of that as well. Lindsey Graham, at the time, had tweeted a video following his first meeting with Garland, and here's what he had to say.
Just had a good meeting with Judge Garland. He's honest and capable. His reputation's beyond reproach. I've told him that I believe that the Scalia vacancy should be filled by the next president. We're well into the nominating process. I think that's best for the court. I think that's best for the country. Let the voters have a say about who they'd like to be the next Supreme Court justice.
Yeah, we really like Garland, but we're gonna wait over a year until Republicans have some control, and then we'll make a decision.
Lindsey Graham was outraged that we would wait one more week to do an FBI investigation. They waited 14 months on Merrick Garland. And now Lindsey Graham thinks there's politics being played in this town, and he's just shocked by it. When he's on record saying, oh, the other judge was great. We just blocked him because we wanted to, because we wanted to play politics. His excuse at the time was let the American people decide in the next election. Lindsey, I got a great news for you. There's an election coming up in 34 days. So we could just wait and let the American people decide. You know what? You guys have a huge advantage in the Senate, and not in the numbers, you're at 51, but most of the people that are up for election this time around the Senate are Democrats. And every political pundit has said for a long time that you guys are likely to keep the Senate. Why don't we let the American people decide? That's your standard, Lindsey. I thought you had principles, Lindsey. I thought you were super mad about people not holding up their own principles.
By the way, that video was shot in April of 2016. As we all know, the election took place in November. So they were fighting aggressively to block Judge Merrick Garland from his confirmation hearings, and they succeeded in that. And you know who bragged about it? Mitch McConnell. Take a look.
One of my proudest moments is when I looked at Barack Obama in the eye and I said, Mr. President, you will not fill this Supreme Court vacancy.
Okay, but all of a sudden, there's politics in this establishment. No one knows. So what was Lindsey Graham mad about? If he's not mad about perjury, okay, and he's not mad about politics, and we know that he's an absolute, by the way, Lindsey Graham, let me just be clear. You're a fraud and you're a sham. That's what you are. Getting all huffy about things that you did 1,000 times worse, okay? So what are they upset about if they're not upset about those things? I don't think he's an actor. I think he was genuinely upset. What's he upset about? How dare you people look into our past? We're all so goddamn angry that you would ever look into our past and the things that we have done to other people. How dare you? It's personal for Lindsey Graham. I wonder why. It's personal for a lot of those old men up there. And they do not want anybody going back and looking at what they might have done. That's why they're so emotional about it. That's why you've got a lot of this and a lot of and all those faces that they put forward. It ain't about principles. That's nothing but a lie. It's about, hey, whatever you do, don't look in my closet. Don't look at anywhere where you might find the skeletons I've buried. So, and that's what in a sense, the whole movement is about, is finding out what went wrong so that we can make sure that we don't put those people back in charge in the most powerful places in this country. And they do not want to let go of their power under any circumstance, no matter what they've done. On the go? Don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.